Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Heart of Strength, where we get real about navigating the ups and the downs of our lives. As I've said each week, we are created with a heart of strength. And when we rely on God for the direction, it makes things a lot easier of those things that we are going through. My name is Delina Watson, the host of Heart of Strength. And today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of us have had to deal with in our career. Micromanagers. I've been fortunate with my career that I haven't had to deal with that very often. But I do recall having a micromanager early on in my career. And a couple of weeks ago, I was asked about how to handle a situation that a friend of mine was in where they were dealing with a micromanager. And it really made me start to think about how many people are dealing with that. You know the type, the boss who constantly hovers, the boss that is double checking everything that he's given you to do, leaving you wondering if he even trusts you with what the actions that he's giving you to do. Here's the thing though, what I think about when I look at micromanaging, it isn't just annoying to us. It can really crush your creativity. It can be a tank of morale, right? Whenever you're working with a team, that team's morale can become one that's resentful. It can leave you totally burned out emotionally. So how do you survive? Better yet, how do we thrive when we're in that situation, when we are being micromanaged? Today, I think we can talk through that. We can break down what's really going on behind that micromanagement. And then I think we can talk about the strategies of how to manage up and share some mindset tips on how to navigate and protect your sanity, to be quite honestly. So let's dive in. Whether you are in the midst of a power walk or you are sitting down for the next 20 to 30 minutes just listening, I hope that you find that this topic is beneficial to you. So understanding micromanager. I think first we have to talk about what is micromanaging. And as I look at that, it's really when someone is excessive in the fact of controlling, when they are looking and observing so closely and so tight that they're not leaving you the option to make decisions. It's that boss that wants to delegate to you, but then watching you like a hawk in every step you make. That is what micromanaging is. Now, why? Why do you think people become micromanagers? I think it often comes from a place of fear, uncertainty, right? They're not certain about the things that you are doing and accomplishing. Maybe they don't fully trust. Maybe there's some trust issues there. Maybe it's about reflecting on the mistakes that are being made, and maybe that's a reflection on them and their management styles. And I think sometimes that perfectionism comes in place. I know, although I hope people would say I don't micromanage, I do know that I've had issues with wanting us to strive for perfection. And sometimes there's that I could do it myself and do it better. And I think a lot of times that's where micromanagers come in their thought process. I think also it could be just poor leadership habits, right? Where they've not been trained on how to lead. So oftentimes corporations are guilty about putting successful people into a leadership role without any type of training. Unfortunately, this impact is huge on the employees. Studies show that micromanagement teams do have that lower morale. And there's oftentimes more turnover in those groups of people when they are being micromanaged, because you don't have the freedom to solve your own problems, right? So what happens is You can't think outside the box because you're in fear that if you're making your own decisions, that it may be the wrong decision, right? So that's where a lot of times people end up leaving the organization or trying to make a change internally. Personally, I've seen this happen. I've seen it firsthand, as I said earlier in my career, with someone that micromanaged, but I've also seen it throughout my career with other individuals where they won't let you move forward with what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to accomplish the things that have been given to you, but you can't move forward without them reviewing everything that you're doing. And after a while, you start second guessing yourself, don't you? At that point, then it slows you down because you're second guessing what you're doing and it slows the process down. And then guess what happens? We become resentful, don't we? Because every time we start to do something and you're asked where you are on the project, what are you doing, what are your next steps, you become resentful to that. Does that sound familiar? If so, you're not alone because a lot of us have dealt with that. Let's talk about strategies. I think it's important that we look at a couple of things. I think first, we have to be proactive in our communication. What I mean by that is I think that micromanagers, they hate surprises. So instead of waiting for them to come to you, I think if we are proactive in our communication, then we are getting ahead of it. Give them regular updates. Give them those updates before they ask for them. Something very simple of, hey, I just want to let you know I'm on target to meet the deadline. Here's where I'm at with this. That's a simple way to have that communication with them beforehand. Be proactive. Second, I think we have to build trust. The trust by being consistent with what we're working on, being consistent on completing those activities. If we're doing that and showing that consistency, the goal is that they become more trustful in what you're trying to accomplish. And hopefully they'll stop coming and asking where you are on things. The follow through, right? It kind of loosens the reins with them just a little bit if we're able to be consistent in building that trust. The third thing I would say is clarify expectations. Sometimes I think micromanagers are being this way because it may be the expectations are misaligned. So from the start of a project, when your manager asks you to do something, sometimes I think it might be good to say, how involved would you want to be on this? Would you like weekly check-ins? Would that be helpful? Or would you like for me to handle this independently? Set the expectations. It's okay to ask those questions. This does two things. This sets the tone that you're proactive and that it kind of gives them a little nudge to trust you because you're giving them the option of how involved they want to be. And then next, I would say anticipate their needs. If you know that your boss is going to ask you every time after you've had a meeting, let's say maybe you're a salesperson and your boss is going to ask you, the minute you leave that meeting, he's going to be calling saying, how did the meeting go? Wanting an update. Be proactive. Anticipate their needs. Know that he's going to ask or she's going to ask. So go ahead and have it ready. Be proactive. Maybe not only have it ready for them, anticipating their needs, but go ahead and make that phone call to them and go, hey, I just had this meeting. This is the update. It reduces their need to micromanage when you are in communication with them. Finally, I would say set respectful boundaries. Now, this can be a little tricky because it's about your tone. Instead of saying, hey, you're micromanaging me, which is probably not the best approach, you could say, hey, I've noticed that you've been closely involved in Project X. I'd like to take a little bit more ownership. Are you okay with that if I do and I give you key points of where I'm at with things? Again, you're respectfully setting some of those boundaries. You're inviting collaboration with them, but you're also building trust. It won't always go smooth, especially when you first start having those type of open communication with them. But I think, though, that by having these techniques and really implementing them, I think that it will lower the temperature just a little bit and give you a little bit of breathing room. Now, mindset. It's a little difficult, so let's switch gears just a little bit when we talk about mindset, because I think when you're dealing with that micromanager, it is important for us to change our mindset. The first thing is shift your mindset. It's not personal. Now that's really hard to take on, right? It becomes personal because we feel like they're accusing that we're not getting things done. Shift that mindset. Think about it and say, this isn't personal. When someone's hovering over me, you know that you feel like they don't trust you. But most of the time, it's about them. It's about their fear of failure. Remember, their behavior is more about their anxiety than it is about your performance. I'm going to read that one more time because I think that's important for us to remember. Their behavior is more about their anxiety than it is about your performance. Okay? Second, I think you need to focus on what you can control. You can't control their need to micromanage, but you can control how you respond, how you protect your energy, right? I know that in this situation, it's really hard because you want to respond with a resentful feeling. And I think this is where we have to change the mindset. If you know that it's not personal, the way that you respond will be different. When you feel that spike of frustration that comes over you, I think you need to stop, take a little bit, take a breath, give yourself some space, right, before you react. If you are reacting with frustration, then it reinforces their need to be in control. So let's think about how, it's not personal. Focus on what you can control, and then focus on how you respond to that environment that you're in. I think that's key for sure. Fourth thing I would say is reframe the situation that you're in as an opportunity for you for growth. Maybe you at some point want to be in a leadership role. So maybe if you reframe this situation into a way where you can move into management, then that's going to be beneficial for you. A lot of times you're going to find that micromanagers need someone to kind of step up into management and to manage, right? So this is a way for you to show that individual, show them you've got the initiative, that you can improve your communication skills by taking on some of these mindset shifts or these strategies, and practice, what you're doing. It gives them an opportunity to see that firsthand. Now, I think sometimes micromanagement can be toxic, right? If it starts affecting you mentally and health-wise, that you're really at that point where you can't take on this any longer, it may be where you have to shift a little bit. Your career, your growth in your career. It may be time to escalate. I would say think through it hard. I would say look at these strategies, try to shift that mindset a little bit. And then if you just cannot handle it anymore, it may be time to escalate. Escalate to leadership. Maybe you have to go over the person that you report to that's micromanaging and have some difficult conversations. Some would say start to pull in your HR person. That's always an option as well. But it's a balance, isn't it? It's a balance on what you can do to lead up to that situation and know what your limits are. I think, though, you've got to definitely try to strategize on how to handle the situation first. As I mentioned, I had a friend recently that asked me how to handle this situation. And they said their manager would ask for the updates 3 or 4 times a day. The manager would be asking. First, she said it drove her crazy because she would get started in what she was doing and the manager would come out and ask where she was on it. Then the manager would leave, come back in and ask again. But it was really when she decided to start sending her some updates and open that communication where she saw a shift. That micromanager was looking for those updates, even though the timeline of completion was long term. They wanted updates 3, 4, 5 times a day. So what this individual said, that one of her suggestions was this: give her manager a daily update. So every day, at the end of the day, she would just do a brief little overview, bullets of what she completed for the day. And then she would say, and here's my expectations for tomorrow. And what she found was that person stopped coming out 3, 4 times a day asking where she was on things. She opened the communication. She was ahead of it. She was giving those updates on a daily basis before being asked and saying what her expectations were for the following day. Turns out that manager just needed more visibility. That's really, at the end of the day, what they were looking for. It's such a great example of managing up, isn't it? Instead of waiting on that manager to change, because we're trying to get them to change, right? Instead of doing that, we've shifted our approach and regained some breathing room in the meantime. So now what do I do if my boss gets defensive when I try to set boundaries? That was a question, the follow-up question from the friend the other day that asked me. And I said, start framing it in terms of the project or the team, right? Instead of yourself. Meaning, I think this project would move faster if I take full ownership and if I check in with you on a daily basis. So kind of shift the gear just a little bit. I think that will help. I think if you take a little bit more ownership and you say, for the team, let me guide and direct the team. Let me get the responses back from the team of where they are on things, and I'll feed that information to you. I think that helps those defensiveness that managers feel so much, and they start asking you those questions. So don't let them push those boundaries on you. You drive those boundaries. You start asking them, those questions. One of them would be, would you feel more comfortable if I led this, right? Again, you're shifting it from them and you to you leading the team in whatever it is. That gives them a way where they can say, you know what, you're right. I need you to take on this. So, wrapping up. Micromanagers are often driven, right, by their own fears. They're habits. It's not about your performance. You can take your next steps to reduce their grip, right? You can do that with communicating, building trust, setting those boundaries. Most importantly, take care of yourself in that progress. Don't let their anxiety become your stress. I think that's so important. Don't let their anxiety become your stress. Remember, it's not about your performance. It's truly about their anxiety, their fears, their concerns about what it looks like for them. I hope these were helpful. I hope that you're able to take this and apply it to the situation that you're in right now. And if this was helpful for you, I ask that you let me know that. Let me know if we need to dive a little bit deeper in our conversations. And do me a favor, share with a coworker this podcast. Hopefully these 3 or 4 little steps will help them start thinking about how to handle the situation that they're in. So until the next time, stay calm, stay confident, and remember, you've got this. I know, ladies, that you can handle this because you've got that heart of strength. Until next time, have a great rest of your day today. Thank you for dropping in and listening.